Both of my parents were teachers. My dad was a career technical education teacher. He taught wood shop, he taught drafting, and my mom was a social studies teacher. My father was very active in the union. My mother took the administration route, became a vice principal, principal, assistant superintendent. So we had some really interesting conversations at the dinner table. And I thought, yeah, that's not the way that I'm going to go. But as it turns out, I had some very influential teachers both in high school and later at Chico State that really encouraged me to go into education, to go into teaching. And I'm really thankful I did. I started off as an English teacher and then later became an assistant principal at a high school, and then landed in Chico as assistant superintendent and now superintendent. So my parents have been kind of supportive through the whole process. When I had questions about teaching, they were there to give me guidance. And then later when I went into administration, I had my mom to say, hey, how would you handle this? So it's been a family effort.
How wonderful. The women who were on the show last month who were in non-traditional careers, 3 out of 4 were firstborns. Is that true of you?
That is correct.
That's really interesting. Are you a firstborn?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Why did you pick English and how did you cope with grading all those papers? Because that's what I think of as an English teacher. I've taught some English classes.
So I had an interesting upbringing in that I was raised in the mountains about 6,000 feet up in the Sierra Nevadas, and we did not have television or radio 9 months out of the year. So I did a lot of reading. And I think when you read a lot, especially young, then you become a good writer. You see a lot of examples. And, writing and reading were things that just came easy to me. So I always did well in my English classes. And the writing saved me many times in other classes as well. If you can write and explain your thoughts, it really helps you through a lot of other classes, social studies, you name it. Not math so much, but science, it did help me.
And it helps like on SATs,
Yes,
college entrance
absolutely.
exams, or GREs.
Right.
It helps a lot if you have vocabulary.
And, the paper grading, I will say there's a lot. When you're an English teacher and you have 175 kids that you see every single day, and especially when you believe in writing, as I do, that's a lot of papers. So it's a lot of evenings, it's a lot of weekends.
To say nothing of prepping the academic part of it,
Correct.
the teaching part. What were your favorite discipline techniques? If a class got or people were chatty, which often happens, how did you corral that?
So I started teaching at a fairly young age. I taught high school at 22.
I did too.
So I had to figure out those discipline techniques, and I had 2 fabulous master teachers. I did my student teaching at Pleasant Valley High School, and 2 fabulous master teachers that really helped with that. But I learned early on that if I made those relationships, and not only with the kids, but with the parents. So, those first couple days you can tell which students are going to be your more challenging students. So I would reach out to their parents while I could still call and say something positive. And then the kids are like, you called my parents and you said nice things. Yeah, because
That's brilliant.
So tried to go down the positive and find the things that were going well and build those relationships.
What I would do is go stand by people who are talking not about the class, not say anything, but just stand by them, and that would work. Or if the whole class was buzzy, stop talking and be quiet.
Also effective measures.
But I don't, some teachers are yellers, and I don't think that works. I don't think that's a good discipline technique. Kevin, why don't we go to you? How did you decide to become a history teacher?
Well, I've been a lot of teachers. History
good.
was the last one, but
Oh.
I had no plan to do it. I was an ag major. I wanted to be a farmer, and
This is at Chico State?
At Chico State, I had this great plan all mapped out what I was going to do, and unfortunately, I had no land or money, but I hadn't thought that far ahead. And it was my younger brother that said, and I really enjoyed school. I went to Chico State for 6 years and then a year of student teaching. I loved it. And he said, a couple more classes, you could get your credential. I thought that was probably a pretty good idea since I just kept going to school. And so and I had always helped my friends through school, in high school and college, and it was something I was good at. It was a good backup plan.
For me, I tutored a girl when I was, I think, a junior at Berkeley, a neighbor girl, and I really liked it. And I thought, oh, okay. Then someone suggested you should be a teacher. I said, okay, that's what I'll do with my history degree. But did you teach ag first?
No, I would have had to go to lots more school to teach ag. I'm a very good test taker. My dad was studying that in college, and he would experiment on us. So we had a really positive test meant you get pizza after. And back then there was a thing called the NTEs, the National Teacher Exams. So I do have a very limited ag credential. I was treating vine crops. And then I have got 6 other credentials by examination.
Kevin has more credentials than anybody I know. He can teach almost anything.
So
doesn't mean I'm
math,
good at it. I was
science,
just good at
history,
taking
English?
tests. Yeah, they've changed those NTEs. I think they realized that back then it was all multiple choice. But I'm a very good multiple choice test taker. Especially, I don't think they were written very well.
So what was your favorite subject to teach? If you
U.S.
had one?
history.
Yeah.
Just loved it, and that was the last job I had before president at Chico High, and I miss it.
You know what I would do it over completely differently, because when I did it, we taught wars. We taught Revolutionary War, War of 1812, Civil War, World War I. And if I was to do it over again, I'd do social history and political history. But that's what the textbook was, and that's what we did. So I hope people no longer are following military history as...
Yeah, well, my favorite era was the Depression, and I don't know why, but it's
dramatic.
I just loved it. Oh, when we got to that, I was just giddy.
And then, how did you get involved in the union?
Well, watching Grapes of Wrath, just as a young age,
wow.
I'm like, wow, hey. And then really, here at my first job in Williams, they wanted somebody for the bargaining team. I'm like, all right, but I was so inexperienced. And then saw the benefit of a union. We had no union in Williams, and even though I was on the bargaining team, went to Oroville and saw the difference. And then when I came to Chico, I was like, oh, this is what a strong union. The difference between Chico and Oroville and Williams was it was a marked difference between having no union and having a union and what your life was like. And I actually went to a union function here in Chico, and the food was not up to par. I thought we should, yeah. So I became the cook. I said, hey, I volunteered to say, I think we could do better. What do you think? And I went from head cook to president over a period of years.
They always say the way to a woman's heart is through their stomach, right?
I still do the cooking.
Yeah, he still does the cooking.
That's great. Do you miss teaching?
I do. Mostly I deal with, nobody calls me to tell me what a great day they had.
Right.
And that my job is to make people's jobs better.
Yeah.
And so I get calls from people that are unhappy, where like maybe this young lady here who's happy. I don't get to see that. I just deal with bad people all day long. But that's the job, and it's important.
Oh, it is important.
I miss the of course, a bad day at teaching's pretty crummy. And so I think teaching has higher highs and lower lows, where my job now is a little bit more even. So as I get older, there's something to be said for, but I miss the joys of teaching.
Right.
I don't miss the bad days.
I was there's a kind of a meditation where you think about when you've been appreciated through the Heart Math Institute. They're doing all kinds of interesting research on the heart, and I thought, well, one of the things that came to me is on my birthday, my high school students would have a teacher pull me out of the room and then, "Happy birthday, Miss Kimball." So that I felt appreciated.
Oh yeah. And what's neat now is I have people that I taught are now my union members are coming back. I was just Margarita
really?
Gonzalez from Rosedale was
Nice.
just sitting at a table with her before I came here. Who I had in 7th grade. Now she's a teacher.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
that's neat.
That's wonderful. So, Karen, you've had a lot of different experiences, more than most students, with different kinds of schools. So tell us what schools you've been to and what worked and what didn't work. What was advantageous and disadvantageous about each particular type?
Yeah, so for kindergarten through 8th grade, I went to Achieve Charter School in Paradise. And after that, I transferred to Paradise High School. And I went there my freshman and sophomore year. And now I'm at Inspire School of Arts and Sciences. And so I've been there junior and senior year. And I guess for Achieve, just being in a small classroom was really helpful. Their class sizes are pretty small.
Like what's typical size?
Probably like 30 students.
I don't think that's that small.
But it's 30 students like per grade. So, yeah, and we all stuck together and knew each other pretty well. And I think that aspect was a really nice part that I kind of missed when I went to Paradise High School. It's a little bit bigger, still pretty small because it's in Paradise, but still that was I thought was pretty helpful. But
did you have in elementary school one teacher per grade, or
yeah.
So it's like typical elementary?
Yeah, typical elementary school. Yeah.
So the only difference is there was only one third grade or one fourth grade.
Yeah.
And was there don't charter schools have to have a kind of a philosophy or something that's unique about them? What was Aspire's?
Their mission statement, Achieves was, I don't remember it word for word, but I remember a small like school learning environment being in it. And Inspires is has a lot to do with individuality and acceptance and creating a space where kids can be creative in arts and sciences. Yeah.
How many kids are there at Inspire?
I want to say 400 would be correct.
It's like 450, 460.
Yeah.
And is there a student body president like at the other high schools, or what kind of governance is there that includes students?
Yeah, there's a student government class, and so there's the student body president and then the like senior class president. And so our ASB president right now, his name is Jay, and then we have another girl, her name is Serena, and she's our senior class president, and so she kind of deals with all of our fundraising things.
Sometimes student government just is a rah go team, school spirit, rather than addressing any kind of educational issues. Is that true or not true from what you've seen?
I haven't personally been involved with student government that much, but I know they do like facilitate school spirit, but I also know that they have put out options to the student body before for I believe there was an internship for a student wellness like council for Chico, and they put that out there, and I believe they have some students who sit on that council as well.
Do you eat lunch with Chico High since you're on the same campus, or are they really separate?
It kind of depends on what your preference is. Inspire students are allowed to go and get food and eat in the Chico High cafeteria, but we also have a lot of options to go off campus if you're a sophomore or up, and then I know there's a lot of kids who also bring food and stick around on Inspire's campus as well.
See if you agree with this. It seems to me that high school is the time when people are most cliquish. So you can go to a high school and you can say, those are the jocks, those are the preps, those are the cheerleaders, those are the drama students, those are the emos, those are the Hmong kids. Then they would eat, and you could just look on the campus and see, oh, these are the Hispanic kids who are eating together, or these are the Hmong kids. Is that still true or not?
I would agree with you to some degree. I think that no matter where you go, students are going to migrate towards those with similar interests as them. But I think Inspire kind of encourages so much mixing of different people that you see groups of friends that have a lot of different interests and stereotypes, if you would called it, I guess.
Where are you thinking, where's your dream college, since you're in the process of applying now as a senior, and possible majors?
My dream college is probably Stanford University, but also any of the UCs or CSUs are wonderful as well. I have contemplated majoring in math or in pre-law studies.
Do you have a particular aspect of math that's the most interesting to you?
Well, right now I'm in AP Calculus.
Oh, good.
And that's pretty interesting to me as well. But I've also dealt with the math behind different parts of physics, and that's also pretty interesting to me.
To me, that's the most interesting thing. I've been learning about quantum physics for a book that I'm working on about visionary scientists, and it's all math. It's formulas and math. It's little, designs on the whiteboard. But then that gets to basic truths, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So math is fundamental. I read a book by a physicist named Jude Currivan, and she said math is the fundamental language of the universe, and everything is in terms of zeros and ones, like a computer. Anyway, it's interesting. If you go to Stanford, is there financial aid that is available? Because what is it, $40,000 a year or something for tuition?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would assume so. I know I'm right in the middle of applying for like FAFSA, and I know generally financial aid comes after the application, but so we'll see about that, hopefully.
And are your counselors helping you with the whole process?
Yeah, we have Inspire uses a website called Schoology, and our counselors post like different scholarship links and helpful like web pages about college applications, and then we also have things called advisories, where it's basically like a group of kids that you stick with every year, but in there it's like a 30-minute period in the
like homeroom,
kind of like homeroom, yeah. And but in there we've been talking about different scholarships and letters of recommendation and things like that.
Good, because it helps to have some kind of support system about how to work the system so you get the money that is available and that kind of thing. It's really hard for first-generation students whose parents didn't go to college and don't know when to apply and how to apply and that kind of thing. I've been working on a series of books about global youth attitudes and global youth activism, and what really surprised me was, one, that people who wrote about youth didn't talk to them. They maybe use multiple choice surveys about health needs or something, but they were really, most of the books did not quote one young person. So my books are full of quotes. And the other thing I learned from doing all this is that there's a growing problem, and I've been talking to people in England and they say it's the same there, especially with girls, of adolescent anxiety and depression. And some people say it's because of cell phones and social media, and there's all this comparison. So I didn't get invited to that party that I saw on my Instagram account. And other people say, oh, it's because of overprotective, helicopter, lawnmower parents who don't let their kids learn and make mistakes and learn from it. So I wonder, and then they say that this generation, Z, is spoiled, narcissistic, self-centered, fragile teacups, fall apart at the slightest stress. Do you think there's any truth to that, or what do you see in terms of people's anxiety levels and depression levels, especially girls?
I think that there's definitely a lot of factors that can play into that, especially in high school these days. I do believe that students nowadays have a lot of things going on, but I also think that they are taking in and speaking about a lot of things, and I think that that also opens them up to, I guess you could say, the pressures of the outside world, I would guess. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for us to be outside of our shells. I think that that's added on a little bit more than
feeling responsible. We have to do something about climate change because the adults are sitting on their popos.
That's a good example. And about cell phones, I think that that there are some pretty great aspects about social media, but there are also the downfalls, and you kind of have to pick and choose how you want to take that and navigate it. And I think as the years go on and as people get more comfortable with social media, I think students are learning a bit more about how to see what they want to see and take it how they would like to. And so I think that it's definitely an issue that students are feeling overwhelmed, but I think that it's other factors other than social media.
To me, when I talk to students, which some of these people didn't talk to, it's because we're going to school, we have hours and hours of homework. If we want to go to college, we may have to have a part-time job. We've got to have extracurricular activities so it looks good in our college app. And I have chores around my house, so I don't get to bed until midnight. So I'm tired. I'm stressed because there's so many responsibilities about getting into good college, and then I'll graduate with $25,000 average debt from student loans.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of pressure and things to be worried about.
And I think that's very true. I know that our seniors are starting to feel that a bit more as people start being like, well, here's this deadline that you got to have this college essay done by, and then you have to have your SAT done by then, and your grades better be up, and you better have your transcripts in and your letters of recommendation. And I know a lot of kids in my class as well who have part-time jobs and who are taking full course loads, and some are even taking like college classes on top of everything as well. Yeah. So it's a lot to manage.
In places like Asia, they would never think of a student working outside the home because it's all about doing your homework, and that's all you're expected to do. What about the helicopter parents issue? Do you see that or not? Overprotective parents don't let their kids learn from mistakes.
I personally don't think I've seen a lot of that recently. I don't feel super educated in that area, but I think that there are some parents who keep a little bit of a closer eye on their students, and some parents who keep a little bit less and are not as don't have as many rules, I guess you could call it, as some other ones. But I don't necessarily see the effects of it straightforward, I guess.
Okay. Kelly, why don't you take that one? What do you see in terms of increasing, statistically, there is increasing anxiety and depression, especially among girls. Do you see that? And if so, what are possible explanations?
So I think the issues may have changed, but I'm not so sure that kids have changed. I think kids are kids, and we have awesome students, and one sitting right here.
Yes.
And when Kevin and I were in school, I know I was in trouble for passing notes or talking too much. And so, there's still that social aspect to school, but now it's done more through texting or social media. So I think kids really have not changed that much. Is there additional pressure? I mean, for all of us, we had the pressure of, keeping grades up and chores at home and, working and getting letters. I mean, all of that's generational. But yes, we are seeing, I think there's more awareness of it. So one of the things that we do on an annual basis is meet with different groups of students as part of our local control accountability plan. And one thing that has been very consistent, the local control accountability plan is how we disperse dollars. We have to look at what the needs are of the district and then come up with what is our local plan to meet the needs for Chico with the dollars that we have available. And it came down from the state. I'm sure we'll get to that later too. Mm-hmm. But what we heard from the students is I asked them, what's going well and what would you change if you got to be union president, superintendent? If you had that magic wand, what would you change? And what we've heard the last 2 years is that they would like more social emotional support. They would like more at-risk counseling. The kids said things like Zen rooms, places where they could go when they were just having a bad day and wanted to get away from it all.
Chill.
Somewhere where they could go, or somebody that they could talk to that they knew cared about them. And I actually think that this is probably more of an adult issue than a student issue. I think adults are so busy. Most parents both have to work. There's lots of things that, it's important to have your kid involved in a variety of activities, whether it be athletic or the arts. And so you're busy getting them to the places that they need to be. And we have parents that are single parents, dual working families, families that are living together, and all of those are stressors. And then you look at some of the things that have happened in our own community lately, starting with the dam and then, with the Paradise, the campfire. All of those are outside stressors that I think families feel, and as a result, kids feel as well.
And what about the helicopter parent, overprotective, colleges setting up special kind of buffers between the parents? How come my kid got a C? And let me talk to that professor. You must hear from some of those parents.
Oh, yes. We do. But, one thing I've learned, and this has taken a long time to get to this spot, but parents want the very, very best for their children. And I think when they are upset because of something that's happening at school, it's because they want things to be good for their child. They want their child to have a fabulous future. And we want that. We want our parents involved. We want them to care. We may not always want them to interact in the angry way that some do. But the vast majority are very, very supportive, especially when you explain, here's what we're trying to do. We have, especially in Chico, we have great parents and great community support. But at the end of the day, I think parents, again, are busy, and so they can't necessarily help their student. I don't know, your parents might be able to, but it's probably pretty hard to help somebody with pre-calculus. So they're relying on the schools to do that. And technology is in a whole nother place. Many parents don't have the skills to help their students with the technology that they need to use, so they're relying on us to do that. And there may be, a little bit of guilt and a little bit of frustration that you can't help your own child. And so you want those people that are supposed to be doing that. And we all have one thing in common. We all want the kids to be successful. So it's finding that common ground.
You're not experiencing helicopter parents as much as you're experiencing busy parents who are coping with a lot of balls in the air.
Well, I think our parents are busy, and then, when something doesn't go the way that ideally they would want it to, then there's frustration and you get a little helicopter going on. And I don't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking out for their child.
What I've read is some people say that what's really detrimental to kids is they can't play freely because parents are worried, we can't let them roam around the streets and climb trees like we did when we were young. And so they don't learn to have independent working out issue dominance hierarchies with their little gang on the street, running around. They're inside watching some kind of electronic screen. So that means you don't get a chance to work through how to cope.
Well, I would agree. I think it's really unfortunate that children today can't people are afraid to let them walk to school for a variety of reasons, or just go to the park and play, again, whether it's safety or traffic or other reasons. And, that certainly is an independence that I felt as a child that, hey, yeah, go.
Get on your bike and go.
Right. I can remember my parents saying, and don't come back until it's dark. Okay. Stay away. And I don't think
no one would say that
now. But that said, I think there are so many other ways that students get independence, whether that's participating in athletic teams or the arts or other activities that they're interested in, and even gaming. I started out believing, oh my gosh, we're just going to have a bunch of people staring at screens. But now that has become competitive, and the math skills that go into that. And so there's social networks that are built perhaps in different ways than what we grew up with. But I think all of us have that need to be, most of us have that need to be social, and students find a way to do that.
I hear even elementary school kids here talking about bullying, and that it's a problem. They'll say, oh, so-and-so is a bully, and we talked about bullying in school. Is that a fairly new issue, or is it just new that we're talking about it?
Well, I think bullies have been around forever. I'd be surprised if every single one of us sitting here hadn't experienced it in some way or another. It may be magnified by social media, because one person acting in a bullying manner can impact so many so quickly. But it's interesting, just defining what is the term bullying, what does it really mean? And we do lots of work with our kids at our earliest grades, kindergarten, first, second, in identifying what is bullying behavior, what do you do when you see that, how do you help someone else if you feel they're the victim of a bully, and really trying to turn that around. And when you talk about, you mentioned narcissistic youth, I have to say, I don't see that. I see our kids more than ever sticking up for each other, being very accepting of people of different backgrounds, different races, different genders. So I think I'm looking forward to a world where the youth that are coming up through our schools now are much more accepting of each other. And it doesn't mean that they have to be friends. It doesn't mean that they hang out at lunch. But yeah, that's that group, and they're doing their thing, and that's okay.
I think that's really true from everything I've read, that this generation, Darren's generation, is more accepting of diversity, different colors, sexual preference, hairstyles. People don't look at people as a category. They just look at them as an individual. Do you think that's fairly true?
Yeah, I would say it's really true. I know that I've seen a whole lot less from when I was a bit younger. I think as a generation we all just started realizing that we should just be kind and accept people for however they wish to identify themselves or express who they are, because really that's their choice, and you're going to make your own choices and they're going to make their choices, and you can all find a way to be together and kind.
Do you think the message came from school, or where did that message come from that we don't judge people by their appearance, we don't care what color you are or whatever, we just care about who you are as an individual?
I think school probably played an aspect, but I think that as from generation to generation, I've noticed that it just it seems to get a little bit more accepting throughout history, and I know I've seen it through my own history classes that I've taken through school, so I guess that also comes into the school aspect, but I think our parents as well were pretty strong founders of that idea, I would think, and just our community as well. I think Chico is a pretty accepting and individualistic community, and I think that just came down to the kids, and the kids ran with it.
I think the women's movement has played a big part in it. Books like Free to Be You and Me by Marlo Thomas, and that the women's movement really emphasized that it's what's important is who you are as an individual, and we like diversity. It's a rainbow that's rich. Kevin, what about you? Take that question. What do you hear from teachers in terms of issues that they're dealing with in the classroom in terms of students' emotional development?
Those complaints don't come to me, fortunately. That's so Kelly's gonna have a lot more experience in that. And I've been out of the classroom for over 8 years now, so I know the kids that I was teaching were much more well behaved than me and my friends were. We were just so people, kids.
Did you throw spit wads
we were.
in class?
Oh, I can't share on the radio the things we did.
Oh.
They were, so, dosing the English teacher with acid. We did terrible things. That was in the 70s, and that, I fortunately never happened to me. It was my friends doing it, not me.
Yeah,
but vandalizing, kids were jerks.
My father.
That was 40 years ago, and drunk driving and all that. I mean, you look at my own children who are in their 30s now, they wouldn't have no DD, where that. So they might have anxiety and stuff like that, but they're a lot smarter than my generation was.
I was going to say, my father said that when he was in high school, they put a cow in the principal's office overnight. So that wouldn't happen now.
Maybe.
That
sounds pretty
Well, the
innocuous.
one I know about was about 20 years ago, and it was dead animals in the at Orville in the air system. Went a little too far.
Oh, dear.
But yeah. So and my high school experience here was at Chico High, and like you were saying, I remember Michelle Wurlitzer would wear her flowing blue gown with leaves and everything, and I'm thinking, my high school, we'd have just beat you up. I mean, that's just the.
That was a student?
That was a student.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, hey, Michelle, that's really cool. Oh, this is my autumnal. And nobody cared. Nobody batted an eye. We had the freshman that came in a kilt. Nobody batted an eye, like you're saying. It had nothing to do with who he was or her, and it was just. It was very pleasant and very pleasurable to be there and see how this generation was so much better than mine.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea.
Do you think it's because there's more pressure to succeed? They know there's more competition to get into a good college, to get a good job?
No, I don't. We were working class kids and had jobs in high school because we wanted money for beer and things like that. And college could be there, but I don't know, TV. I don't know why kids are so much, just worrying about their own stuff instead of what does it matter what you're wearing? But it mattered in 1978 in North Tala High School. It did. It just, there has been a culture shift. I don't know why. I'm grateful it happened.
How interesting. Let's shift gears a little bit, and could you explain to us, Kelly, how much money does the school district get? Where do they get it from? Who decides how it's spent? And is there any student input into that?
So I'll grab my notes fresh from the budget review. So for Chico Unified, we have a total of a $140 million budget for our 1920 original budget.
And does that include teacher salaries and
Yes, that's everything.
landscaping? That's it.
That's what comes into Chico Unified. So out of that, $39 million comes from local property taxes, local revenue, and that's 27% of our budget. And the federal portion of our budget usually comes with strings attached. For example, it is specific for low-income kids or English language learners, a very small portion for special needs students. But for Chico Unified, that's $8 million or 5% of our budget.
Oh, it's tiny.
So the vast majority, 68%, comes from state revenues, and that is $96 million. So it's a combination of local, state, and federal, but the vast majority, as I mentioned, is from the state.
Do you have to lobby for that? I mean, do you have to have your member of the assembly or the Senate, the state Senate, work for you to get money and you have to go and schmooze, or does it just according to how many students you have?
So we are funded on what's called a local control funding formula, and basically the goal is for it to be equitable per student across the state, with then additional dollars built in for students that are from say low-income families, or students that are English language learners, or students that are foster youth or homeless. So we get additional dollars in that for those students. But we get about $10,000 per student that comes into the district. And so we budget from there. We are a people business, so the vast majority of the money that comes into the district goes to pay for human services. So that's our teachers, our counselors, our bus drivers, our cafeteria
Cooks,
workers. And those are providing direct services to our students.
People say that California is one of the worst funded school districts. What's that all about? Because we're a wealthy state.
So when we changed from Prop 13, and the funding, it was no longer based so much on local dollars, but based on state. And, we locked in where property taxes could be, where people could be taxed. So that was a decrease in funding, and it really put California at the bottom of the barrel. And I think we're, 47, 48?
I think we're up to 46 now.
Okay, we are moving up.
Oh, no.
So 46th in the nation out of 50 states. So California used to be, I know when I was in school, it was really the shining star of all the states. California and Texas were right up there in terms of quality education and the amount of money they put towards education. And that's changed, and we've just had to change, how we do business and how we utilize our dollars.
Is there any lobbying by teachers' unions or superintendents groups to increase that funding?
Always.
Yeah, always.
If I may, there's something very specific right now, going back to Prop 13. Mm-hmm. Before Prop 13, that tax base was, property taxes were about 50% homeowner and about 50% business. And one of the unintended consequences of Prop 13 was for corporations, if you sell your house, the new person that buys it bought it at a higher price and can theoretically afford a higher tax, and the taxes go up. With a corporation, if you sell the corporation and you keep one of the old board members on the new board for a year,
tricky.
It doesn't stay. So now it was about 50-50. It's about 70-30 right now, with 70% of the property taxes coming from homeowners, 30% from the business. So the union is
Very active.
very active, out collecting signatures right now for something that will not change the homeowner piece, but change the corporate piece, so that their businesses, if they're over $3 million, get assessed the way your house and Kelly's and
Hello.
mine gets assessed, to try to close those loopholes. So you've got, guys
Good
playing at paying at 1974 levels, where if you just bought a house, you're paying it at 2019 level. And they've sold their business 4 times, but anyway. So it'll be on the 2020 ballot.
And what is it?
I don't know what the name will be, but
Dual tax
it's
roll?
well, it's a reform of Prop 13. It's to take care of that corporate piece that, not intentionally, I don't think, it just happened that.
It'll be a proposition?
Yeah, it'll be a proposition.
Well, that's really important. We need to work
Yeah, so
for
the
that.
union's out working with, there's 400 different entities signed on to this
In support.
in support of,
Yeah.
and it keeps growing as they're working through the details of it. But yeah, I just heard about it Tuesday night.
That's a good explanation,
Just
too.
as a little end note, what's the legislation pending about charter schools?
Well, there's quite a bit. Kelly's gonna know more than I will.
Okay, good.
Well, so charters, public schools, K-12 districts have this huge egg code that sets down the laws for how we run schools. And charter schools really were able to get around a lot of that. And I think that's a great thing. There's a lot in there that probably keeps us from doing as good of a job as we could. I'll give you an example. We have to have buildings that are built to the Field Act, and they have to be built with prevailing wage. And so when you're building a building for a public school, a K-12 district school, you're going to spend 3-4 times as much money building that facility. And under charter law, you can use an existing building, you can use a storefront. There's just a lot more flexibility, so your money isn't having to go so much into a building as it can into education, which personally I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
So the charter legislation, as I understand it, is that it puts the approval to the district, which it has always been. It's up to the local school district to approve a charter. But in the past, it was really difficult to deny a charter. So the new legislation allows us to look at what is the fiscal impact, what is the unique academic program that is being offered, is the area already saturated, is there a need for charter? And in Chico, we have quite a few charters, and they do address a wide variety of needs and a wide variety of educational practices. But about 25% of the students within Chico Unified do go to a charter school. So that's a pretty large percentage of students, and clearly it's meeting a need, and it's filling the desire for choice.
Is Inspire a charter school?
It
Yes.
is, yeah.
Teachers that I know don't like charter schools because it often takes a middle class mentality to sign up for a lottery or sign up ahead of time or know about it, and they say it picks off all the kids that are motivated and have supportive parents and makes their teaching job harder. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I think, first of all, it depends on the charter school. So we have a couple charter schools, Nord, Country Day, and Forest Ranch, that were community schools, and Chico Unified could not afford to keep them open. So they started as charter schools, and they serve their direct community, and I think they're doing a wonderful job.
I love Chico Country Day.
And Chico Country Day has been around for, I think, at least 20 years. They just came up for renewal, and the things you mentioned about the diversity, the type of parents that will seek that out, be willing to serve on a board so that they can get a student into it, may indeed be a different type of parent. So those were some really tough questions that were asked by the Chico Unified School District Board of Education about the enrollment practices and what are their efforts to increase the diversity so that it reflects the diversity of Chico Unified. Many of our charters right now do not reflect the diversity that we have, and one of the areas that I will say is a frustration for me is that we have a really strong special education program, and our teachers are absolutely fabulous. I believe just by the people coming to our district for especially autism services, we have a fabulous program, but it is a very expensive program. And many charter schools do not have that level of special needs student and therefore don't have that cost. So it's a double-edged sword. I love the fact that we have the programs and that we have the staff that really help kids that need it, but it is, very expensive, and you can't do some of the things that other schools can do when they don't have that expense that goes with it. So
When
it's a
Betsy,
dilemma.
when Betsy DeVos is charter school, does she mean private Christian schools? Is that what she means by charter school? Do you think?
I will not venture to guess.
Because
what
she
she
gives
means.
charter school a bad name by favoring it so much.
I think that
she means private.
she is looking at all schools, whether it be private, some of the things that I've heard, and again, that would be a question that she would have to answer, but, even religious schools would be funded with vouchers.
So what is your daily job consist of? What are you doing most of the time?
Well, it depends on the day. But, really, it's my job to run the school district. So it ranges from making sure that we meet our budgetary needs, that our budget is flush, and we have people that, really look at that very, very closely, down to individual purchases. It means that, we hire the right people to get the job done. At the end of the day, kids' education is only as good as the people that surround them and the teacher that is in front of them. So definitely spend a lot of time with that. Spend time making sure that we have training that's appropriate, whether it is for our custodians and our grounds staff, have training to how to use the materials and the equipment they have to use, to the teachers, having training to meet the cutting edge demands that our state and our country is asking of our students.
So people who just tuned in, we're finishing up a panel about education in Chico, and it will be on my YouTube channel. This is Gail Kimball. Kevin, what do you hear from students? I mean, from teachers, since that's your field. What do they want? More money? More smaller class size? What are their issues?
Smaller class size is always on the list. But yeah, actually we're just in the third year. Money wise, you can never give anyone enough money, right? But they are really happy right now. We're in the third year of a very generous offer from the school district. And money wise, people are, at least the ones that talk to me, and normally I just get complaints, but they're very happy.
So a
with
beginning
wages.
teacher, what's the salary for that person?
I think it's right around 46 on column
45,
46 to 48,000 for a first year teacher, and topping out at 104,000 at year 31, which and we have a lot of teachers. Chico tends to.
They stay.
They
They
stay.
stay. Well, and they also like I came here in year 7. I was 3 years in Williams, 3 years. So we get a lot of people coming in, maybe not the beginning of their career, but towards the middle, and then they stay to the end. So we have a lot of folks at that end in that 25 to 35 year range that are really happy with their wage. So as far as what teachers are asking for the most, assessment is always an issue.
That it's a pain in the,
That it takes away from, it depends on where you are. It's gotten a lot better from what I hear, but that rings out there because that takes away from time from teaching. That's if they were
And you
lazy, they
teach
just
for
give
the
tests all
test.
day.
You just teach to the test.
So and then depends on where you are, what we're talking about. Right now, we're looking at innovative schedules at the high schools, and so that's. Some people are really for it, some people aren't.
What is that, an innovative schedule?
Going to something different than, like, at Inspire, they have a block schedule. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Inspired as a block schedule, it's much like college level. It's like as a
3
college
days a week or 2 days a week?
Yeah, and so we have A days and B days, and our classes switch every day. And there's 4 periods a day, and they're about 80 minutes long instead of 50 as a normal high school schedule, bell schedule would be.
And how do you like that?
I love it.
Why?
It gives us a lot of time in our classes to so that the teacher isn't just lecturing for like 50 minutes. They get to do a lesson and maybe a lab as well in the same class period, so you're not jumping between days. Plus, it also gives students 2 days to do classwork for the next class. I would recommend doing the class homework that you get that night, but it gives you another day in between to get that done as well. Also, it just allows you to not have to focus on so much in one day. You
can digest
have
better.
those 4
Yeah.
classes, and that's what you take in for the day instead of 7 or 8.
It is like college.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I didn't like the quarter system when I was getting my PhD at UCSB. It was too fast. But I like the concentrated classes, but not with little tiny short semesters. So I think a semester is great. Kevin, anything else that comes to mind in terms of teacher?
We're and it's things that we're working on with the district. Special ed is special education has got a lot of issues. So we're dealing with almost our entire bargaining year this year is going to be devoted to see what we can do to alleviate some of those issues, just the paperwork and and as Kelly was saying, because many of the charter schools don't offer the services that we are, those expensive ones. It's our biggest group. We have more special ed teachers than any other group.
Discipline?
And their workloads. So all the issues that come up with all the new mandates that come down from the federal government that it keeps adding to their list and nothing's coming off. So that's probably our major issue that we're working on. So it'd be those 3 things as far as the phone calls that I get, and there's lots of others, but the innovative schedule at the high schools, people for it, against it, the special ed issues, and assessment's still an issue at the elementary level.
Right.
That we're working on. That's a lot better than it was.
Right. So if the 3 of you in the 3 minutes we have left, if you had unlimited money, you lived in, I don't know, Alaska has money because of oil or something, what would you do differently? What would you add on? Why don't we start with you?
With unlimited money, I'd lower class size.
Yeah.
If money wasn't an object, that would be it.
Kelly?
I would agree with Kevin. I think lower class size would really help us with that social emotional learning that our students are asking for. I would also add counselors, mental health support that our kids are asking for.
What about peer counseling?
Absolutely. Peer mediation, peer counseling.
That really can be wonderful.
And then another thing that I would love to see us do is to have a longer school day so that we meet the needs of parents. And I'm not talking necessarily about teachers having to teach a longer school day, but that we have some programs in the morning so that our working parents can drop students off and know that they're safe, and then have our regular school day where there's the education piece, and then have after-school programs, whether it be activities, athletics, free play, in a supervised environment, so that our parents can go do their job and not have to worry about also taking care of their children. I think that's
Are you
really
thinking
tough.
elementary school more than high school with an after-school program?
Well, yes, elementary would be the bigger need, but I also think it's important for us to keep all of our kids, busy and engaged, whether that is doing internships with work, whether that is participating in the
great.
band, but provide more opportunities in supervised environments for our students for a longer period of time.
So you could have college students that weren't paid $40,000 a year do some of those activities.
Depending on how we set it up, absolutely. And that's how it's run in the CARD program,
Yeah.
the CARD after-school programs now.
Right.
And then just one of the, pipe dreams that I have, and Kevin and I have talked about it, but, one of the things I would love to see us be able to do is provide childcare for our teachers, our classified staff, our employees. On site. So that they really can. They know where their children are. They know they're being taken care of. And ideally, that would be a training environment for our secondary students to be helping with that child care, helping them see a career path. From everything I hear, that there's a shortage of child care opportunities within our community. So if we can be training students, providing that service, giving them a skill after even high school, while also taking some pressure off of all of our staff, classified and certificated. I think that would be great.
Fairview used to have teen parent childcare. Are there any high schools doing that now?
Fairview does. It's gotten pretty small.
Are there fewer babies?
Correct.
Good.
And that's probably a good thing.
Let's close with you, Taryn.
Yeah.
If you were the superintendent for, let's say, a
She
month,
probably will be someday.
what would you do?
I'll try to explain it quickly, but I honestly would put more funding towards productions and arts, and Inspire already puts a lot of focus on that, but we just had our auditions for our shows that we get to do, and we only get to do like one show a year, and we had about like 100 kids audition, and only about 30 get to be cast, and I know that's something that we're trying to think on, but I think that providing that opportunity for more students to try something and find something they're passionate about, theater-wise or acting or anything like that, performing-wise, is important. So,
Great. So you're listening to KZFR, and I want to thank our sponsors who make this program possible, and remind you that Ask Dr. Gale next month, we're going to do Growing Up Hispanic. Ask Dr. Gale is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Chico State Continuing Ed and Open University program. Open University opens doors to new educational and career opportunities.